What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about what my requirements to get promoted to blue belt are. And, everyone has their own different requirements. Maybe you can take some things from what I do if you would like. Maybe you can completely disregard them. Either way, I figured I would give an insight into my thought process. So, number one, more important than practical skill now for me, is whether the person spazzes, okay? What is spazzing again? Spazzing is uncontrolled explosive movement. If the person that I'm considering for promotion to blue belt is a spaz, and that means that I cannot trust them to roll safely with anyone in the room, that means that I will not promote them to blue belt, because with that higher rank comes a greater expectation of behavior and etiquette in the way that you roll, okay? Additionally, if you have to spaz in order to impose your will on people, your jiu-jitsu is actually not as good as you think it is, okay? You have to exert maximum effort, maximum explosive effort in order to impose your will. That's not a good thing. You should be able to impose your will methodically and without a high risk of injury towards you and your training partner, and you should be aware of your body when you're going through these movements, okay? So, I will not promote someone anymore that spazzes. If you do have someone in your school that spazzes, I highly recommend you take them aside and you tell them, look, I want to get rid of your spazziness. Here's what we're going to do. You are required in all of our drilling sessions and in all of your live rolling sessions to flow roll for the next 2 months, or however long you want, but I think 2 months is a good amount of time. Should you roll with a white belt, you are not allowed to use a submission against them. Should you be rolling with someone significantly smaller than you, you have to take extra care to make sure you know where your body's going, and you are not allowed to match the pace of your opponent. Should your opponent decide to go on a wild pace, you have to flow with it, and you have to continue to roll at the pace that you set at the beginning, okay? If they go through this drill for 2 months, they'll develop a much higher level of maturity in their game and in the way that they roll and train, and you will most likely kill any spazzing instincts that may remain in that person. I've done this a couple times already, and I've seen great success in doing this. Now, when it comes to practical skill, you have to be able to defeat a bigger, stronger, untrained opponent when starting from an inferior position. What does that mean? That means that if I'm rolling against someone as a blue belt that is untrained but has maybe 30 pounds on me and is pretty strong and athletic, if I start in bottom side control, in bottom mount, in bottom back control, I should be able to escape that position, get on top, and impose my will and dominate them from there, okay? Should I not be able to do that, then I'm not a blue belt, at least not in my mind, okay? So, I have a high expectation of pin escapes, your ability to escape and defend from bad positions, and then your ability to get on top and start imposing your will. You may not necessarily be able to submit everyone that's extremely bigger and stronger than you, but you should at least be able to get them into dominant positions every once in a while and pin them and hold them down, okay? So that's my expectation for blue belt. Now, that being said, while this is purely meritocratic and based on practical skill, that does not mean that you can't account for things like age, athleticism, and weight, okay? So, I wouldn't expect a 150-pound guy and a 180-pound guy who are both blue belts to perform the same against, a purple belt, okay? I would expect a 180-pound guy to do better against that particular person, okay? It's fine to take weight into account, because what you want to, isolate when it comes to your promotions is technical skill and strategic skill in jiu-jitsu when it comes to practical implementation, okay? So you want to take weight out of the equation as much as possible, so you got to account for the different sizes and strengths of people, okay? Also with age, okay? The older you are, the less athleticism you have, the less ability to move you have, the more injuries you've probably accumulated over time, So I wouldn't expect a 40-year-old guy to perform the same as a 30-year-old guy, okay? Now, on average, this is on average. I've seen some 40-year-olds that roll like they're 25, okay? But those people tend to be the exception, not the rule. And you need to account for these differences, and accounting for those differences is totally fine, okay? This is especially true as you get older, right? Once you start getting into 40, 45 years old, 55 years old, 65 years old, okay? At each decade jump, okay, you should expect their practical rolling, abilities, compared to the other students in the room to be lower, okay? I wouldn't expect a 55-year-old guy to roll the same as a 45-year-old guy against, your average athletic blue belt. Same thing with a 65-year-old compared to a 55-year-old guy, okay? I wouldn't expect them to roll the same way against your average athletic blue belt. And there's there's like a guideline in Jiu-Jitsu which basically says, you know, every 30 pounds is a belt roughly, and every 10 years roughly is a belt. So what that means is if I have a 150-pound blue belt, okay, and a 150-pound purple belt, if the purple belt is 10 years older, I should expect that they will be roughly the same in terms of their ability to, you know, dominate the other, okay? 10 years of youth is a big deal, okay? And again, this is especially true as you get into the older age ranges. So, for instance, right, I would expect a 50-year-old brown belt to really struggle against a 20-year-old blue belt. Okay, there's just a big difference in the 50-year-old person's ability to use athleticism and explosiveness and, you know, react in time to what the other person is doing. These are things you should take into account. And, you know, when it comes to disabilities, for instance, you should take those into account as well. And if it's hard to gauge, you know, the practical skill of a disabled person, you know, because, you know, maybe they don't have use of one of their legs or both of their legs, you know, it's hard to account for that. Like, what does that mean in terms of belts and practical skill versus someone who's not disabled? The easiest thing you can do is, okay, what is this person's level of cognitive understanding of Jiu-Jitsu and their ability to articulate that understanding of Jiu-Jitsu to others, right? So if you have someone who, you know, you cannot compare their practical skill in Jiu-Jitsu to somebody else because they just suffer from a really debilitating disability and that prevents them from rolling to the potential of a non-disabled person, you could see how good that person's teaching skills are, right? If they are able to convey information and strategy to somebody else to the point where that person becomes a purple belt, then obviously that person teaching is at least a purple belt in their cognitive understanding of Jiu-Jitsu. And you can use that as a system of promotion, right? So this is obviously going to take longer, okay? If I have someone that does not have use of their legs, you know, gauging their practical skill in Jiu-Jitsu is going to be extremely difficult. But I would say, look, if you can teach somebody else to be a blue belt, then you're at least a blue belt. If you can teach someone else the skill sets to be a purple belt, then you're at least a purple belt. So for that person, it's going to take longer to get to black belt, but there's still a path for them, okay? They could go the teaching route. And should they be able to produce other people with the sufficient competence to say, man, this guy is producing brown belts that, you know, it looks like they're going to shoot their way up and become black belts, then that person's a black belt, right? They can coach other people to get to their level. So that's how I would do it for a person that cannot demonstrate this kind of practical skill. So in that case, I've covered all the bases of the types of students that I've either trained or would expect to train at some point. So I hope this may have been informative to some of you that are looking to become coaches or, you know, are just looking to understand what you need to do in order to get your blue belt. Again, my requirements are going to be different than everybody else's, but this is just my expectation. So thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you share it. Make sure you like the video as well. Every time you guys hit that thumbs up button, it boosts our video in the algorithm, and that really helps us. Make sure you guys also check out the Rumble channel and subscribe to both of them if you are new. Thanks a lot, guys. Drop a comment if there's something you disagree with or you want to expand upon. I'll see you next time.